Chapter 1. The Vanishing Guard. The alarm blared through the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art at 3:07 a.m., its shrill cry slicing through the silence of the empty galleries. By the time security arrived, the motion sensors in the Renaissance wing had fallen silent. Nothing appeared out of place, no shattered glass, no scattered artifacts. Only one anomaly drew the night manager's attention. The Lover's Duel, a 17th century masterpiece valued at $90 million, hung slightly askew on its gilded frame. A thin layer of dust coated the floor beneath it, undisturbed. The painting hadn't been taken. It had been replaced. Detective Eleanor Hale arrived at dawn, her trench coat speckled with rain. She was a woman of sharp angles, cheekbones like knife blades, eyes the grey of storm clouds, and a reputation for dismantling lies. The museum director, a wiry man named Reginald Poole, greeted her with trembling hands. He insisted the theft was impossible. "The security system is flawless," he said, voice cracking. No one could have bypassed it. Eleanor's gaze drifted to the ceiling, where a camera lens glinted. "Then why does your footage show nothing?" Poole hesitated. "The feeds from last night. They have been erased." The first clue came an hour later, buried in personnel files. Marcus Voss, a senior security guard, had abruptly quit the day before the theft. His resignation letter, a terse 2 sentences, was riddled with typos. Eleanor noted the shaky signature. People who quit in anger didn't misspell their own names. She tracked Marcus's last known address to a crumbling brownstone in the city's outskirts. His landlady, a chain-smoking widow, scoffed when Eleanor mentioned his resignation. Quit? That boy loved that job. Said the paintings were the only things that didn't judge him. She leaned in, her breath sour with nicotine. "He left here in a hurry yesterday. Looked scared." The apartment told a darker story. Marcus' belongings lay untouched. A half-eaten sandwich mouldering on the counter, a Netflix documentary about art forgeries paused mid-play. But it was the bathroom that tightened Eleanor's throat. A smear of cobalt blue paint streaked the sink. The same pigment, she recalled, used in The Lover's Duel. Back at the museum, Eleanor re-examined the painting. Up close, the brushstrokes seemed off, too precise, as if someone had replicated the original's chaos with clinical calculation. She flagged it to Poole, who paled. "That's absurd. Our authentication team inspected it last month." "And the guard who quit?" Eleanor pressed. "Did he ever report anything unusual?" Poole's silence was answer enough. Interviews with the staff unravelled threads of suspicion. There was Lydia Chen, the museum's head conservator, who'd filed a complaint about Marcus 2 weeks prior. "He kept lurking near the restoration lab," she said, adjusting her tortoiseshell glasses. "I told him to stay out, but he wouldn't listen." Her alibi for the theft was airtight. A fundraiser at the Guggenheim, but Eleanor spotted fresh paint under her fingernails. Then there was Victor Krauss, a reclusive art collector who had visited the museum daily for a month. Obsessed with The Lover's Duel, a junior guard admitted. Always stayed till closing. Victor's penthouse yielded a trove of forged manifests, but his lawyer arrived before Eleanor could ask about Marcus. The breakthrough came at midnight, buried in the museum's garbage. Eleanor sifted through coffee-stained invoices and rotting food until her gloves closed around a crumpled napkin. Scrawled in hurried cursive were 3 words. They changed it. Marcus's handwriting matched the napkin. The paint in his sink matched the forgery. And the final blow. Security footage from a bodega across the street showed Marcus arguing with a figure in a black hoodie hours before his resignation. The timestamp, 9:48 p.m. After. Poole claimed the feeds had been erased. Eleanor confronted Poole in his office, the forged resignation letter between them. "You knew Marcus didn't quit. You helped cover his murder." The director's composure shattered. "They threatened my family. I didn't know they would kill him. They just wanted the painting swapped. A gunshot cut him off." Poole slumped forward, a bullet hole blooming between his eyes. Eleanor ducked as the window shattered. Outside, a shadow melted into the alley. The crime scene yielded nothing, no fingerprints, no shell casings. But on Poole's desk, Eleanor found a shipping label addressed to a warehouse on the docks. The sender? A shell company named after a minor character in The Lover's Duel. As dawn broke, Eleanor stood before the forged painting. The truth clicked into place. Marcus hadn't died because he had witnessed a theft. He had died because he had noticed the art itself had been altered. The real crime wasn't the theft. It was the lie hanging in plain sight. Chapter 2. The brushstroke of betrayal. The docks at midnight were a labyrinth of shadows, the air thick with brine and the low groan of cargo ships. Detective Eleanor Hale stood outside Warehouse 17, its rusted doors creaking in the wind. The shipping label from Poole's desk had led her here, to a building that smelled of turpentine and decay. Inside, she found not stolen art, but a workshop, a macabre artist's studio. Canvases leaned against damp walls, each a flawless replica of The Lover's Duel. Yet one detail diverged. The sword in the male lover's hand, originally pointed downward, now aimed at his rival's throat. Eleanor's flashlight glinted off a workbench littered with pigment jars. Cobalt blue, vermilion, gold leaf. The same materials used in the forgery. A ledger lay open, its entries coded, but one name surfaced repeatedly. L.C. Lydia Chen. The conservator's initials. Before Eleanor could pocket the ledger, a noise echoed, a footstep on rotten wood. She spun, her gun raised, but the figure vanished into the dark. Left behind was a paint-stained rag reeking of linseed oil. Eleanor's mind raced. Lydia had the skill to recreate the painting. But why frame Marcus? And why kill Poole? The answer came at 4 a.m., in the form of a voicemail from the medical examiner. Marcus Voss's autopsy revealed traces of a rare sedative in his bloodstream, a drug used in art restoration to calm tremors in patients with nerve damage. Lydia Chen, the examiner noted, had a prescription for it. Eleanor stormed the conservation lab at dawn, finding Lydia bent over a 19th century landscape. "You knew Marcus spotted the forgery," Eleanor said, sliding the ledger across the table. "You sedated him, staged his resignation, and then murdered him when Poole grew skittish." Lydia laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "You think I'd risk my career for a copy?" The original was, already, a fake. She revealed a decades-old scandal. The real Lover's Duel had been destroyed in a fire. The museums founder commissioned a replica, burying the truth to protect their reputation. Poole discovered the secret. He hired me to create a new forgery, one he could sell to cover the museum's debts. But Marcus, her voice faltered. He noticed the brush strokes, started asking questions. "So you killed him," Eleanor said coldly. "No." Lydia's composure cracked. Poole panicked, hired someone to silence him. "I just cleaned up the mess." The confession hung in the air, brittle as dried paint. Eleanor pressed further. "Who shot Poole?" Lydia's eyes darted to the lab's emergency exit. "Someone who doesn't like loose ends." A bullet tore through the window. Eleanor tackled Lydia to the floor as another shot shattered a row of pigment vials, spraying the room in kaleidoscopic color. Outside, a motorcycle engine roared. Eleanor gave chase, but the rider vanished, leaving behind a single clue. A monogrammed glove embroidered with VK. Victor Krauss. The reclusive collector's penthouse was a mausoleum of stolen art. Eleanor bypassed the doorman, finding Victor in a vault-like gallery, staring at The Lover's Duel. The real forgery now mounted on his wall. "Detective," he drawled. "I wondered if you'd appreciate the irony. The museum's masterpiece was always a lie. I merely updated the narrative." Eleanor stepped closer. The painting's altered sword, she realized, mirrored a hidden X-ray of the original. A secret duel to the death. You had Poole commission the forgery, then double-crossed him. But why keep the painting? Pride? Insurance? Victor smiled. "With this, I own the museum's secrets. And soon, it's bored." His hand inched toward a panic button. Eleanor was faster. She shattered the painting's frame with a fire extinguisher, revealing a microfiche taped to the canvas, a list of every blackmailed donor and politician. "You're not the only one who plans ahead," she said. Hours earlier, she had swapped the forgery with a dummy, baiting Victor into confessing. Police swarmed the penthouse, but the victory felt hollow. Back at the museum, Eleanor faced the empty space where the lover's duel once hung. The case was closed, yet one question gnawed at her. Who had driven the motorcycle? The glove's initials matched Victor's, but the shot that killed Poole required a sniper's skill. Victor had no military training. The answer struck her at Marcus S.'s funeral. Among the mourners stood a woman in a black veil, Poole's estranged wife, Clara, a former Marine marksman, discharged under shadowy circumstances. Their eyes met. Clara nodded once, a silent acknowledgement before disappearing into the crowd. Eleanor let her go. Some truths, like the original lover's duel, were better left ash. Weeks later, a package arrived at Eleanor's office. Inside was a small canvas, a perfect replica of the lover's duel, the sword restored to its original position. A note read, "Every lie contains a kernel of truth. An admirer." Eleanor hung it on her wall, a reminder that in art, as in crime, the most dangerous secrets live in the brushstrokes unseen.